Hi, I'm Trish.
And I'm Brandy.
And you're listening to episode 15 of
Connected Conversations. This is your go-to space where international teachers, leaders, and parents like us get together for real talk, real tips, and sharing tools to thrive abroad in the international schools world.
Between us, Brandy and I have been doing this international teaching gig for nearly 40 years across 4 continents and 8 countries, and soon to be more,
Yay!
working with more school systems and curricula than we can count.
So whether you're about to start your first overseas post or you've been abroad long enough to have friends scattered across the globe, we know one thing for sure. Finding your people isn't always easy.
Exactly. Everyone talks about the packing list, the contracts, the curriculum choices, but no one really prepares you for how hard it can be to build community from scratch.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Right. Making friends abroad can feel a lot like the first day of school at a new place. You meet lots of people and you do your best to fit in, but on the inside, you're saying, please like me. I hope they like me.
But the truth is, you're not alone in feeling that way. Nearly every international teacher, parent, or partner goes through this at some point, even the ones who look completely settled.
So today, we want to talk about what it really takes to find your community abroad, the emotional side of it, the cultural layers, and the small, realistic steps that make it a little lighter.
Yep. This episode is part of our International Files series where we unpack the systems and logistics of international life, moving and working abroad. And this week, we're diving into the human systems of that, connection, belonging, and the friendships that make international life feel like home.
Whether you've just landed in a new country or you've been abroad for years, let's get real. Let's share our experiences and let's get connected.
So let's start by naming the thing that no one really warns you about when you move abroad. You actually lose your entire social history. Back home, friendship happens almost by accident. Like you have a coworker you jive with, or a schoolmate, a chat or a school gate chat, just like leads to a friendship, and your neighbor, who just like exists and knows way too much about your recycling habits.
So true. You don't even try to build community. It just grows around you. But when you move abroad, all of that resets. You're starting from scratch and you're the foreigner all of a sudden. It's like being in social kindergarten again.
Totally. And you realize how much comfort used to come from actually being known.
And that's why small routines become a lifeline. Always saying hello to a neighbor, preferably in their own language, not yours, or going to the same cafe or park or bakery regularly. This may sound so basic, but it builds this little rhythm that slowly turns strangers that you see into familiar faces.
Yeah. Now, I have lived in the same neighborhood just outside of Prague now for about 7 years. And I know all of my Czech neighbors. They all know me. And they say their little broken hello in English. And I'll greet them in my broken Czech, and as they're out on walks. And like one neighbor the other day even asked me if I had found my lost package. And I was like, how does she know that? But then I remembered I'd posted it in the village Facebook group, and if anybody had seen it. So I just love that I now know my neighbors. We care about each other despite the obvious language barrier.
So sweet. And that's so key. I know it myself because the culture shock out there on the streets of your new home can sometimes leave you really exhausted at the end of the day. So many people just expect to naturally adjust to their host country, the food, the pace, maybe the bureaucracy. Culture shock, though, can be a huge one. But what no one tells you is that your friends can also be from a dozen different cultures, too.
That is so true. Like being in this international life really means that sometimes you're living a truly intercultural life, sometimes adapting to multiple different cultures all at once.
So true.
You can be at dinner and the humor that would totally make your American friend laugh makes your Japanese friend deeply uncomfortable, and your British friend just looks on with politely horrified. You know who you are, my British friends.
And we know who we are. Like, I know that I'm usually the annoyingly perky American around other cultures. Sometimes I feel like SpongeBob.
We were just talking about SpongeBob likeness yesterday at work, but realize, isn't that what makes this cultural life so rich? You start realizing that there isn't one normal, and that weaving in and out different things make it a beautiful life tapestry.
That's so true.
It's always why the connection out here just takes just a little bit longer, because building openness and understanding becomes a treasured process in this lifestyle.
Yeah, I love that. But no matter how aware you are of this process, you still might find yourself not quite connecting with the social group you start with, too.
Mhm.
So, Trish, has that happened to you? And what have you done
Mm.
if you felt that before?
I really think it's important to look carefully at the groups you're joining, like especially Facebook or Insta. What are you following? And if they really represent your true you, or like the you that just really needs friends at the moment,
Yeah.
like is the hiking group there because you like hiking, or the pottery class or spoken word poetry, or maybe even church, whatever it is, you'll naturally meet people with shared interests instead of just shared visa if you're intentional.
It's a really good point. And I
Mhm.
didn't even realize that this was an option, like joining these groups that are aligned to my interests until probably my 4th year abroad.
Who didn't tell
Super
you?
embarrassing. It was really hard. But if you're doing something you do at home, you're more likely to meet people who feel like home
Yeah.
if you join those groups.
Mhm.
Okay, so now let's talk about what happens after you join the group, though, and you reach out to a new friend, and then you feel the vulnerability because
Mhm.
making friends abroad feels kind of like dating.
100%. The please like me energy is super real.
Yeah.
You meet someone nice and suddenly you're overthinking every text. Did I come on too strong? Did I tell too much of my life story in that first encounter? Hmm.
Or there's the ghosting. You
They don't
finally
do
have that great brunch, and then deep, deep, deep radio
Yeah.
silence, and you start replaying those conversations in your head. Like,
Mhm.
was it when I mentioned my cat?
Never. It's never then. Like, if you're not a cat person, you're not my
That's
person.
right.
In my case, it was probably when I said something like too honest, like, I kind of like the big weekend events at school.
You're such a nerd. I
I
love
know, I know. It is.
you.
Sorry.
Truly, though, there are only so many times that you can put yourself out there before
Mhm.
you start protecting your heart a little bit.
Yeah.
The vulnerability can be a very heavy weight mixed with the excitement of possibly having a new friend.
And honestly, you might find yourself in a flip flop position where you're not so interested in hanging
Mm.
out anymore with anyone after getting to know them a little bit. This is life. It's
Sure.
normal. Start a podcast. Yeah. We're not meant to be connected with every human we meet on the street. Okay.
Mm.
I think we sometimes forget that.
That's so true.
Mhm.
After I became a mom, I realized that finding my tribe had totally shifted. And I'm
Yeah.
sure most moms out there can relate to this. And it added a layer of expat mom life challenge that made it even harder. And I remember joining this Facebook group for Prague moms and reaching out person by person, trying to connect with somebody.
Mm.
And, just something a little personal about me. When I first had my son, I struggled a lot and
Mhm.
I needed some time away from him as much as I loved him. And I just needed to
Yeah.
remember who I was as a person,
Yeah.
not just who I was as a mom.
Mhm.
And I remember meeting up with this other mother, and I just really wanted to connect with the difficulties of motherhood or expat parenting. And I needed someone to just understand the challenge I was going through. So we're sitting in this park and our little babies are on the blanket. And I remember so clearly her saying to me, "Oh, isn't it so hard when you have to be away from them? Like, I go to the grocery store and I look at pictures on my phone and I just want to run home and be with her because I miss her so much." And I'm over here thinking, like, girl, I'm so happy for you. More love to you and your journey as a mom, but I don't think you're my person right now.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I can't imagine. It was not me.
It wasn't you. But, lucky enough, though, I can speak to both sides of this
Yeah.
story because it was in that same group that I was going down the list trying to make connections. And I reached out to another mom and found one of my now best friends for life. Our first meetup, she turned to me and she was like, "This is hard, right? Like being abroad and being a mom, it's hard."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, it's love at shared difficulty."
Yeah, I can identify with that mom, definitely. No. And I'm glad you found a friend like that.
Thank you.
That's so important that we need those. And I think that it's also good to reflect on like what your social vulnerability threshold is.
Mm,
Because some of us go way out of our way and truly think that we've got to do that when we first move abroad because we think it's the only way that we're going to get friends.
right.
And as for me, I've just learned that I'm quite a low, like solitude person. I'm
Mm,
okay with like 3 times a week, a long walk through the forest or like going through a park. And that makes me feel connected, even though I'm alone
hmm
with my community without draining my energy. because the energy is coming from around me
Yeah, you have
in
to
the
like
new place.
fill up your cup before you can share it with others, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a balance, finding ways to honor yourself and putting yourself out there at the same time to connect with someone else.
Yeah. So speaking of those of you who may feel you need to go out frequently, you know, another challenge we don't talk about enough is like that life is in stages and different ages. You're interested in different things. You know, we all should know this, but like you can adore your colleagues on one hand, but sometimes you're just in completely different chapters in your life, and that's okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely in I have fuzzy socks, a cat, and a book waiting for me at home stage of my life.
Or if you're an introvert, you know, surrounded by extroverts, more extrovert, you know, I can definitely see that what it's like to have friends who always want to be constantly out and how that can feel for you.
When I first moved, I kept trying to be with the social crowd at my school. And I had this ideology that if I wanted friends, I had to take every invitation to hang out, or I would be forever rejected from the friend group if I refused.
FOMO, it's real, right?
Yeah.
Fear of missing out. And my friend Eric and I in Thailand, we used to always joke in the staff room because we would say we didn't have FOMO, we had phone bibisin. And it was
What's that?
Fear of not being asked, but I'm still going to say no kind of thing. So, you know, like it's okay to build your social life around your rhythm.
Yeah.
So.
And you know what? That's where the best friendships form anyway, the slow burn ones. And even when you do find your people, there's really this constant reality that expat life is also transient.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that revolving door can be brutal out here at times. And like you just get close to someone and you're like, oh my gosh, maybe we'll even take a vacation together sometime. And then they're like, we're moving to Singapore.
Yeah, you get super good at those goodbye parties, but really bad at goodbyes.
Yeah, this is very ironic because we're filming this on a Saturday and last night was my goodbye party for the school.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm not good at not tearing up and doing all those goodbye speeches. I just really don't like it. I just kind of like, can someone please make me a stamp card for farewell drinks? You know, 10 parties and your 11th is free, you know? Though I have no complaints because Brandy did pick up the tab last night. So thanks, friend.
Thank you. But truly, I mean, the whole process is super bittersweet because while you lose people, you also gain this like global web of friendships. And sometimes they're old household items as they move away. I mean, at this point, my home is like a graveyard of home goods from friends who have come and gone.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm pretty sure I've seen a lot of my old things in your house as I've walked around the place. But they're yours now. No backsies. No backsies.
Thank you. You know, it also makes travel more fun too. Now you have built-in couches on every continent. Yeah. But I mean, except for me, like I don't technically have it on every continent. A lot of my friends, ironically, came to Prague and then moved back or went to the States. So I've got quite a few states with my friends. And my global network or web.
You have continental couches.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I've got friends in Washington, and I didn't live in these places either. Washington, Texas, Massachusetts, Arizona, North Carolina, Louisiana, Alaska, Virginia. I mean, those are all the friends that I met here abroad and have gone back. And globally, I've got and Minnesota, thank you. But you're here. So, you know, I don't have a couch back there to visit.
My mom and dad will take you any day.
But then globally, I've got friends in Italy, Spain, France, Greece, the Netherlands, Brazil, Switzerland, Ireland, Romania, Germany. I mean, you really just build this whole constellation.
Yeah. And you and the boys came and saw me while I was in Thailand.
That's right.
So there's another couch. I know, like 2 years ago, I was like, I don't have a lot of money, but I can afford a flight somewhere. So where can I go? And I did some couch surfing with friends who I had met in previous contracts. I was across Scotland and Malaysia and South Africa. So great times. It pays to be connected here. And tomorrow I'm even leaving for more global adventures back in Asia. So super excited about all that.
And although, you know, you're watering those friendships after those people have left, it's also really important to keep your old roots watered too. Staying connected to family and friends back home with the regular calls, video dinners, even silly memes, they remind you that you still have a base of people who have known you through different versions of yourself. And Marco Polo, if you don't know it already, is a great app to look into if you want to keep those connections alive.
Yeah, you first introduced me to that app years ago, and my
Yeah.
family and I, we have different group chats, with dad, without dad,
Hope
no,
dad's
but
not
no,
watching.
dad'll watch. Oh, sorry. We love you, dad. Okay. But it's just like how be mindful of what you do share back with
Right.
home. Sometimes I say this because when you're out here having a bad day, you know, you want to complain to someone sometimes, and there's usually probably not somebody here yet that you have in that scenario that you're ready for. So like when I want to recount a frustrating day or complain to my parents and family for just a moment, like usually it breaks down to two things. Like one, they don't have a frame of reference for what my struggle is.
Mm.
So they kind of just say, well, you can always move back home, I'm like
Oh, that's
still
not
getting that
helpful.
20 years later, or two, they get worried or feel sad for me. And that's not fair that I'm putting that stress on them from abroad. So
Mm.
like, I just feel that like as a mom with a child abroad right now myself, like I'm now seeing like how parents just have a big lump in their throats when you send your kids off. So just like remember how you share and what you share with those early connections back home. Not that you have to
Mm.
paint the pretty picture only,
Sure.
but I'm just speaking my own truth. Sorry, I'm rambling on about my mom truth.
I love
Yeah.
it though. I love it. And for anyone who's listening who moved abroad as part of someone else's
Oh
job,
yeah.
it's a whole different layer. The
Mm.
trailing partner or trailing spouse experience
Mhm.
can be really tough. You can go from being this independent person to
Yeah.
figuring out your purpose all over again in a whole new community.
Yeah. There's real identity loss in that, especially if you can't legally work in the new country.
Mm.
It can start to feel like your world shrinks overnight. I know, like, my Czech husband tried his hand in America with our young family almost 2 decades ago, and then South Korea a year later.
Mm.
But his travel abroad, like, only lasted 2 years, really. He wasn't really built for not working in his mother tongue. He didn't have a teaching job. So
Right.
it's really different if you're not working in education as a trailing spouse. There's a lot of identity that we
Mm-hmm.
as adults put in our like work life
Yeah.
and who we are as our career. So it's important to have those conversations with your spouse before you come abroad or your partner and really like think about what might be your real life scenario
Mm-hmm.
when if it's just the school moving you both there, but it's one of you who's going to have the home in the
Yeah. Yeah,
community.
I bet those conversations are really important just to
Hmm.
like visualize or have like a game plan of like how to build a community
Yep.
in your two
Yep.
different situations.
Hmm.
As a trailing partner, the trick here is to create spaces to give
Yep.
you structure again.
Yep.
Join a co-working hub, volunteer. You
Hmm.
could take a class, keep up with your regular date night,
Yeah.
something that lets you feel like you and not just the plus one on someone else's
Oh my
adventure.
gosh, that's so true. The plus one, that's a sad way to say it. But
Mm.
I know how he felt sometimes, especially when I was getting invites out with the staff or people that I'd seen all day, and he was just tagging along without really knowing anyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes the best company, though, you'll find is your own.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Being your own friend is part of the deal out here, when working abroad. I think to echo our guest, Kirsten, in episode 12, the very best people and the people who thrive the most out here in this international teaching world are quite self reliant and
Yeah.
problem solvers, and they really do know who they are as individuals.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
community starts with how you treat yourself and
Mm.
what you can bring to the
Yeah.
community. So if you're in that season of your life where it all feels pretty hard, we see you. You're not
Mhm.
doing anything wrong. You're
Yeah.
just doing something incredibly brave.
And the truth is, it's just those little steps, the routines, the interests, the invitations, they don't just build friendships out here, they really build your sense of home.
And anybody abroad will assure you that takes time.
Yep. Everything we've just talked about, routines, reaching out, starting over, all of it sounds practical, but underneath it sits this giant emotional layer. Because
Mm,
even if you do all the right things, there are days where you still feel
I
lonely.
know.
And I think it surprises people like, wait, I'm doing everything right. I live in this beautiful city. Why do I still feel
Oh my
off?
gosh, so
Hmm.
relatable. And it's this quiet kind of
Hmm.
loneliness. You're surrounded by people all the time and
Hmm.
you know the names, you know the faces, but there's no one that you could text when something really good or bad
Yeah.
happens.
So that's when that feeling of being in community, but not of community yet kind of takes over. You're present and you're just not woven in quite yet.
Yeah, I remember my first year abroad, I'd have these little victories, like a lesson that went really well. And my instinct was to grab my phone and text my old best friend back home.
Yep.
But then I realized that the time zone was different. And I think, okay, I'll just text her tomorrow or I'll call her tomorrow. And I realized that I kept saving these life updates for a call on the weekend. And my weekdays started to feel empty without having anyone to share them with.
Which is exactly another reason why I've said like that those snapshots and sending them home, and that Marco Polo or Snapchat apps are so great to keep you connected with those abroad. You just shoot off that happy memory when it happens and they read it in their own time when they get to it. So little reminders that your life is now running on a completely different time zone clock.
Yeah, and that's when the I should be happier spiral kicks in, because you look around and you think, I chose this life. I shouldn't be lucky. I shouldn't be lonely. I'm lucky.
Yeah. But those two things can coexist. Like,
Yeah.
really accept that. You can be grateful and still crave a little bit deeper connection. It doesn't cancel out the joy. It just makes you human.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, we have to stop guilt tripping ourselves for missing out what we left behind. The missing is part of belonging.
And there's also grief in there, to be honest, like not just for the people who you miss, but for the person you were when you were back home. Okay. The routines, the confidence, the version of yourself who didn't have to Google where to buy laundry detergent.
I've done that.
Yeah.
The small victories, I swear, the day I successfully navigated the post office in Czech Republic, I felt like I had climbed Everest.
Yeah. And most of us expats have climbed Everest, if that's the metaphor we go with. Check post. And that's emotional. You know, like I would say there's definitely a weird identity gap out here. You're like, you're relearning who you are within an old context, or without the old context too, but like in your new context of the new self,
right,
like without the people who used to validate your jokes and your skills and stuff.
Yeah, and that's emotional work that most of us, we don't even plan for. You're just kind of tossed into it. And it means that it's not just a relocation when you move, it's a reintroduction to yourself. And let me tell you, it doesn't all go perfectly. I've had 100 situations where a language barrier, a grumpy old mean worker, maybe not old, maybe young worker, or just a simple mistake on my part made those reintroductions to myself super hard. You figure out who you are in the face of discomfort and misunderstanding on a constant basis. And, you know, I will say it is draining.
We are calling this vulnerability fatigue. You know, when you just put yourself out there again and again, new job, new friendships, new everything, and you just feel like tapped out, you know, empty. You start thinking, I don't even have the energy to meet one more person, but that's okay. It's okay. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and your future friendships is just take a rest.
Oh my
unplug.
Gosh. Can you remind that to me throughout my life?
Unplug. You got this.
Give yourself permission to pull back and recharge. Self-community, it counts too. And let me say, pocketing your hard stories for friends and family back home can be a lifeline. Being able to vent just to get it all out and then feel seen and understood can fill your heart meter back up to go back out and do it all again tomorrow.
And if that loneliness some days feels a little heavier than usual, remember that reaching out for support, therapy, coaching, even an online group, you know, a connected friend absolutely counts as community. You know, I actually know a few teachers who started therapy while abroad and said it really became their anchor. Having one person who consistently sees you, even if you have to pay them, it's okay, is sometimes all you need to feel grounded again.
Yeah, 100%. I have been through some really dark times since I've moved abroad, and I've looked for a therapist a while ago. Another culture difference, though, not all countries treat mental health the same. The Czech culture around mental health is a few decades behind with what we're familiar with from the States. However, it is slowly shifting. More expat therapists are available each and every year. And additionally, we're going to be linking 2 great online therapy platforms for you if you're in this stage. And in my opinion, they're both very, very affordable.
Yeah, those are called problemshared.net and betterhelp.com. So, also good. So if you're listening and you're recognizing yourself in this, just know you're not behind, you're not failing, you're not doing it wrong, and you're definitely not alone.
No, you're just in the middle, that messy middle where all the real growth happens. And we are rooting for you, and we're simultaneously sharing that we've been through this too.
When we think of community, we often imagine this big, ready made friend group, dinners every weekend, instant belonging, people who will get all your bad jokes.
Yeah, basically like an expat version of Friends,
Yeah.
but with more visas and fewer matching apartments.
Exactly. Oh my God. It would be so nice to just walk across the hall.
Oh my
But the
gosh.
truth is, community abroad rarely looks like that.
Yeah.
It's usually a patchwork of smaller, quieter connections that are a slow burn build over time.
Totally. I think a lot of people chase this one big circle of friends
Yeah.
idea. I mean, I definitely did because
Mm.
when I was back home, I did have something close to that. But in reality, I've learned that community is very multi-layered.
Yeah.
There's your outer circle and with the familiar faces, the person who smiles at you every morning at the coffee shop, or maybe the neighbor that you visit with when you're both in the elevator.
And then there's like your middle circle, maybe colleagues, gym friends, not in my case, the other parents at pickup or at the gate, people you see often enough to share pieces of your week with.
But then you get to that inner circle, the
Mm.
one or two people who truly get you. The Trishas, the ones that you can text mid meltdown and you know that they're going to answer you.
Yeah, and that's the circle that most of us are probably all craving, but the outer and middle layers do matter just as much. So, like, be grateful for them. They're what make your days feel a little less like a solo project. It's important to keep your expectations realistic so that you don't feel like you're missing jumping some bar that somebody has set, but it probably doesn't even exist.
Right.
Okay. It just changes with time, right? Like there are seasons of connection after each and every move in each and every country.
Perfectly said. Early on, you're in that plant all the seeds stage. You're saying yes to everything. You're figuring out where you fit.
And then it just shifts one day, like you find a few people, routines start to settle, and it becomes more about like deepening things rather than collecting.
And sometimes you hit a quiet season again, and maybe that's because someone leaves or your own priorities change, and that's totally normal too.
Yeah, the rhythm of this expat life means that friendships often grow really fast and really deep,
Right.
and then sometimes they fade.
Yeah. And if you're a teacher, your colleagues often are your family.
Yep.
You spend your holidays together, you eat potluck dinners, maybe you cry in staff rooms, sometimes all in the same week.
Day. and those boundaries, they can blur fast. You might celebrate Thanksgiving with your department head or spend New Year's Eve with your principal, things you probably are not doing back home.
Both of which I have done.
Yeah,
have you?
Me too, of course.
But that closeness can actually make your work life richer.
Yeah.
It's not just a job now. Now it's a shared adventure.
Shared culture, adventure.
Yeah.
It does take a little bit of balance, though, to make sure that your social life isn't only your workplace.
Yeah. Okay. Having at least one friend outside of your school circle helps you switch off from the work drama and remember who you are beyond your role.
Yep. So maybe the takeaway here is that community isn't one big thing you naturally find.
Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about something that doesn't get said enough. Sometimes the first community that you find abroad isn't your community.
Yeah. Maybe that moment that you're at an expat event and everyone's bonding out over how much they hate that local grocery store, and you're just like, oh, I kind of like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, rewinding a little bit, I felt this with a group of colleagues I worked with that went out all the time, and they connected over partying and drinking. They were a little younger than I was. And those were also things that I just wasn't interested in my first months abroad. And I felt this pressure to cling to this first group that welcomed me. I was new and I was lonely, and you don't want to seem ungrateful to them. But sometimes that group just isn't aligned with who you are, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay to politely back away from those circles that drain your energy and don't reflect current values. It doesn't make you unfriendly. Sure. They'll get it. You get it. It just makes you all intentional. Like the gossip heavy groups, those are not for me.
And, it's tricky because you might think, but this is the expat group. These are the people. But the secret is they're not the only people. Nope. Every city has hundreds of hidden pockets of community. Yeah. You just have to be curious to find them.
Yeah, I think that it's most important to say that too. Like you can be grateful, really grateful to that group that helped you make the transition.
Yeah.
And celebrate that friendship, but still recognize when it's time to move on from
Yeah.
it.
I mean,
Grow.
sometimes you outgrow
Yeah.
spaces, and that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that those times were bad or those people were bad.
Yeah.
It just means that you're evolving and you've already learned what kind of energy feels good to you,
Yeah.
what kind of people fill your cup. And that
Mhm.
wisdom is what leads you to the right places next time.
Yeah. So if you're tuning in like to yourself, you really need to know what feels authentic to you. And
Mhm.
that's where the real belonging starts.
Yeah. As much as this episode is about finding community, it's also about creating it.
Because at some point you go from being the new kid on the block to being the one who's been here a while.
Yeah, in that moment, you suddenly realize, wait, I'm the one who knows where the good coffee
Yeah.
is, or I know which grocery store actually sells peanut butter.
Peanut butter smooth. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. And that's when you get the chance to be someone else's bridge,
Mhm.
and which is what we're trying to do here with these connected conversations.
Yeah. And, this
Mhm.
is one of my favorite things about being abroad
Yeah.
because if you've been abroad a while, you remember what it felt like in
Oh,
those
yeah.
early weeks, how one kind word or one simple
Yep.
invitation could completely change your
And
experience.
it doesn't take much. Remember
Seriously.
those days? You don't need to host a big welcome dinner, even though some of us like to do that.
You.
Sometimes it's just about saying like, "Hey, want to join us for lunch? You want to sit at our table?
Mhm.
Here's a shortcut to avoid the uphill walk to work. Please tell me if you know it."
Or you can also think about like adding a new teacher or
Mhm.
parent to your WhatsApp chat before they even have to ask.
Yeah.
Those tiny moments of inclusion, they can mean absolutely everything.
I think sometimes people underestimate just how much those small
Yeah,
gestures matter.
totally. I still remember the colleague who showed me where to buy fabric for sewing in my first few months abroad. And I'm not kidding, it made me feel like I belonged.
Yeah, I have cotton and I have fleece, therefore I have purpose. That's
Exactly.
Brandy.
But truly, that little act of kindness, it made me feel seen.
Yeah. So, and this is especially true around the holidays. Those gestures mean even more to so many of us. Like everyone's posting family photos and home traditions, and
Mm.
it can really sting if you're far away from home, especially if you can't afford to go home, which happens a lot of times in the first year or two
Yeah,
abroad. So,
definitely. So if you're
mhm,
settled,
mhm,
consider inviting someone into your plans, even
yeah,
if it's just hot chocolate
yeah.
after school or a small get together.
Yeah, don't assume everyone has got somewhere to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes they really don't. And they're sitting there quietly hoping that anyone will ask them.
I remember when you invited me to your house for my first Christmas
Mm.
away from my home, and I was so grateful.
Yeah.
The beautiful part is that connection, it's also contagious.
hmm
When you reach
hmm
out, it also inspires others to do the same.
Yeah, it's that little chain reaction of kindness. Pay it forward, people.
Yeah, and when you pay it forward, you don't have to become someone's best friend
Yeah.
to try to make a difference.
Mhm.
Sometimes you're just the person who helped them bridge that awkward first month,
Yep.
and that's enough.
Yep. You're not signing up for lifelong friendship by inviting them out for that little bit. You're signing up for eggnog and extended warmth.
So if you're listening and you're already settled, maybe
Mhm.
take a moment this week to look around. Is there someone new at work, in your building, or at your child's school who could use a smile, a seat, or an invite?
'Tis the season of connection. And truly, being that bridge for someone else might just remind you how far you've come in
Yeah.
this journey.
And that's the magic of community abroad. When you
Mhm.
give it, you get it right back.
Love that. So, as we wrap up today's episode, maybe this is your reminder that belonging abroad doesn't happen all at once. It's not just a switch you flip, unfortunately. It's something
Mm.
that grows quietly and just one connection at a time.
Yeah, and sometimes you lose parts of your community as they move to different parts
hmm
of the globe, too. But remember that community isn't always loud or obvious.
hmm
Sometimes it's just that one person you wave to on your morning walk or the colleague who saves you the last brownie in the staff room.
hmm
Those small moments are the roots of something real.
And if you're in the season where you haven't found your people yet, please know it's okay. You're just in that part of the story where the roots are growing quietly underground.
Yeah, keep watering them. Keep
hmm
showing up.
Yep.
Call a friend back home. Do something kind for yourself.
hmm
Make your favorite meal. Connection starts with the way you care for you.
Oh, I love that. And because every country is different and different to settle into,
Yeah.
levels, we can't tell you in this episode where to find the community where you are.
hmm
Can't give you a list of websites,
Yeah.
but we really hope that these ideas have inspired you to expand your awareness of community.
hmm
And for those of you who have thought about that. Like community is more places than you think.
That's so true. And, there are people out there who feel that they have found their people. And the holidays are a beautiful time to open up that circle too, to notice someone new, to make space at your table, to invite someone into your warmth.
Because really, that's what this international life is all about. Not just moving countries, but expanding hearts, yours own included. Maybe take this episode as your sign to reach out to that one person you've maybe been meaning to message, or to say yes to one small invitation.
I love that. And if you're listening to this while you're packing up for winter break or sitting in your new apartment wondering what's next, we see you.
You're part of the bigger global constellation of people doing the same brave thing out there.
And every tiny light in that constellation, every friendship, every check-in, every shared cup of coffee is proof that you're not alone.
So, if this episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. Is there something that helped you find connection when abroad? Your story may help someone else.
And in the meantime, head over to connectedglobal.org where you'll find more conversations just like this one, plus tools and resources to help you build your life abroad with more confidence and connection.
And remember, you can always book a consultation with us here, whether you're navigating life overseas, planning your next move, or figuring out what community looks like for you right now.
And we'd also love to chat and help you take your next step in those consultations, wherever you are in the world, wherever you're listening from.
So until next time, may your friendships be genuine,
your connections be lasting,
and your community feel beautiful and international. This is the connected one that we're going to do the hug or something, right? What did we do in the last?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. So
I looked up there. Did you?
I did, but I was also looking at you to this one last time. Okay.
Are we ready?
Here we go.
We got this. Okay.
Hi, I'm Brandy.
Hey. Connected Conversations. This is your sip.
Hi.
Okay, ready?
I think we should start over.
I think we can. Yeah, but I think we can say hi.
Okay.